Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I'm Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. We just got some massive game announcements from the VR showcase, and I'm here to not only recap them all, but also add any additional information I have about these projects and my overall opinion. In total, there were 22 separate games showcased, including 4 brand new projects from Flat the VR Studios, 7 brand new game announcements, and updates to 11 titles that are either already out or are releasing in the near future. This includes things like new gadgets for breachers, games like Underdog moving to new platforms, and release dates for other previously announced titles like Slender the Arrival. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but let's start this video off with the 4 brand new projects from Flat the VR Studios. They're bringing the controversial first-person shooter Postal 2 into VR. Back in 2003 when this game originally released, there was a massive backlash against the title, and it was actually banned in multiple countries. Some of the reasons cited were gratuitous violence, animal cruelty, stereotyping, and borderline racism. Now for others, the game was just filled with plenty of dark humor, and I will say by 2025 standards, this is pretty tame when it comes to overall violence. Now I'm curious to see if this game still holds up, and it'll actually be fun in VR. Now next up, we got a reveal trailer of their newer project, Surviving Mars Pioneer. This looks like a first-person twist on the 2018 strategy title Surviving Mars. Rather than controlling an entire colony, you're doing it alone, and it looks like this will play out a lot like Subnautica, but rather than being under the water, you'll be on the surface of Mars. I'm absolutely pumped for this one and want to hear more about this as soon as possible. Now for the horror fans out there, we have a brand new game that hasn't even released on flat screen yet. In Out of Sight, you'll be taking on the role of Sophie, a blind child who sees through her teddy bear. Unfortunately for her, she's in a haunted mansion with a dark history, and you'll have to help her escape through multiple puzzles in order to get out alive. There's actually a flat screen demo of this game available right now if you want to go check it out. And the final new project coming from Flat the VR Studios is a port of the existing VR game Shadowgate over to the PlayStation VR 2. This was a classic dungeon crawling inspired title that previously released for the Quest and PC VR. Well, Flat the VR Studios wants to make sure that the PlayStation owners aren't left out, and a game like this could definitely shine a bit more with those nice OLED panels. Well, let's move on into the other 7 brand new game announcements, and first up is Titan Isles. From the creators of Windlands and Windlands 2 comes a brand new co-op action-adventure title. It features a similar type of high-flying movement, and it looks like there's a unique array of awesome weapons, unique enemies to blast through, and strategic combat. This game definitely looks like it could be a lot of fun, but I'm much more excited for the brand new shooter Forefront, which comes from Triangle Factory, the same studio that gave us Hyperdash and Breachers. Forefront features up to 32-player large-scale battles across land, sea, and air with an arsenal of both futuristic weapons and vehicles. So it looks like VR is finally getting a first-person shooter title similar to Battlefield. I absolutely love the work of Triangle Factory. Hyperdash was one of my favorite all-time shooters, so I can't wait to try the early access that plans to release sometime this year. Now, some other game announcements like Reave are much further out. Reave is a dark fantasy PvP, PvE extraction game. You'll be journeying into dungeons, battling creatures, and looking for some new loot and gear to plunder. Now, social interaction is also at the heart of this title, and even though it's going to be a long time before this game is released, I'm absolutely pumped for this title. This is 100% my style, and I just want to know down in the comments who's coming with me. But if you're not up for some dungeon diving, how does finding your forever home with your favorite pet sound to you? Stay Forever Home is exactly that. The game's inspired by the bonds that humans form with their pets, and it's a chill little adventure title between you and your fox-like companion. Now next up, we have the exciting looking 3-person co-op adventure roguelite title, Zix. You'll have the ability to reshape reality, which will vastly alter every single roguelite run, and the game's designed around fast-paced action. Now from the trailer, graphically the game doesn't look fantastic, but I bet once you're in VR, this game looks 1,000 times better. This is the type of graphical style that tends to work really well in VR. Now jumping back to some cuter games, we have Penguin Festival from Alchemy Labs, the same studio that gave us the classic Job Simulator. Well, now it looks like you're taking some of those basic Job Simulator mechanics on an adventure trip with a bunch of penguins. You'll be in charge of getting everything ready for the festival, but don't neglect having fun with your fellow penguins. Now this looks like it could be a lot of fun, and I'm sure if you enjoyed other games like Job Simulator, you will enjoy this one, but I will say this is not my style. And last up in new game announcements, we have the story-driven single-player title, Ghost Town. What starts off looking innocent enough quickly turns into a ghost-filled horror show. Now, I'm not sure how heavy they'll lean into the whole horror aspect, but it does look like it gets pretty damn creepy. But now let's move into updates on some previously released or soon to drop VR games. In total, we have 11 to go over, and let's start things off with a big one, Hitman World of Assassination. This is the 4th attempt to bring Hitman into VR, and from the overall footage, it is looking pretty damn good. There's definitely been some improvements to the overall controls. This stealth-based assassination title is looking better than ever, and I'm cautiously optimistic that they won't let us down this time. At least I hope they won't, and I'm curious how you feel. Let me know down in the comments. Now next up we have a horror-themed first-person shooter that was inspired by other titles like Dead Space. I actually demoed Memoreum back at Gamescom a few months ago and was truly impressed. The title looks surprisingly good on the Quest, there were excellent lighting and sound effects, and I definitely got an overall Dead Space vibe. I blasted through about 45 minutes of gameplay and found myself craving much more. Now it looks like they're planning to deliver just that when this game drops in September. But I know horror games aren't for everyone, so let's switch things up with prison boss Prohibition. It's time to start crafting and selling bootleg liquor throughout the city. You could do this solo or bring along a partner in crime, and the VR showcase just gave us a glimpse of the title's augmented reality mode. Now again, not my style of game, but I know people enjoy these quirky job simulator type of experiences. Now we also got another little gift from Triangle Factory, as they've just added a brand new hologram gadget into Breachers that you can go try out right now. Obviously there's some great ways to utilize this, and it's gonna make that Rainbow Six Siege style combat even better. And speaking of titles getting better, it was just announced that Vendetta Forever is coming to PC VR, and they're also planning to introduce a bunch of new free levels on all platforms. If you haven't tried out Vendetta, I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic shooter with plenty of callouts to different action movies. Now another title that's also moving to a new platform is my favorite roguelite, Underdogs. This multi-ton guerrilla-style mech brawler is making its way onto the PlayStation VR2 in the near future. It'll include the sandbox and other updates that the other platform versions of this game has already received, and you can expect it to take full use of the PlayStation VR2's haptics and graphical fidelity. Now for the PlayStation VR2 owners out there, do not sleep on this game. It was one of the best VR titles released in 2024, and it had plenty of competition. Now I'm also really intrigued to jump into Slender the Arrival, as this was an older flat screen title that I actually played through with my wife, and at the time it absolutely scared the crap out of us, so I expect I'll need a diaper for the VR version. Slender Man is already unsettling on flat screen, so I'm not looking forward to him chasing me down in this first-person horror-themed, story-driven experience. But now let's quickly run away from the horror stuff and back to some more fun combat with Gorn 2. Gorn was an absolute classic VR arena brawler, filled with some wacky physics and gratuitous yet cartoony violence. Now Gorn 2 was just recently announced, and from the footage in the showcase, it looks like the game is getting much crazier. Now as good as Gorn looks, I'm much more excited for the 4-person co-op shooter ExoShock. We only got a teaser trailer, but stylistically this looks a lot like Borderlands, and I know how well cell shading works in VR, and it's also giving me a nice old school vibe. It's inspired by some of my favorite titles like Helldivers 2, Warhammer 40k, Halo, and Fear. Built from the ground up for VR, they're trying to make it much more than just your run-of-the-mill shooter and require you to use some team-based tactics. I'm absolutely pumped for this one and promise to show off some more content as soon as I can. Now if you're looking for a different type of first-person shooter, we have Deep Cuts. The premise is you'll have to fight your way through a series of different movie sets. This includes things like an 80s horror film, a 70s space thriller, and a good old-fashioned western. There's physics-based combat, an array of unique weapons, the ability to manipulate time, and loads of environmental storytelling. Originally, I wasn't that excited about this one, but the more I look into it, it seems like it could be a pretty fun time. But it looks like I saved one of my most anticipated titles for last, and that's the Flat the VR port of RoboQuest. This extremely fast-paced shooter looks like it's going to be one hell of a ride in VR. Again, it has that cel-shaded style of graphics that I really love, and I know both the flat screen version and the VR mod for this title both have rave reviews, so I am ready to jump in and just start blasting through lots of robots. But how are you guys feeling? What was your favorite title showcase today? At the top of my list is Forefront and Reave, but overall this was a really good showing. Let me know what your favorite was and how you're feeling down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing.